Welcome to Logically Emotional, the place to come for the answers to the questions you didn't know you had. Thanks to our sponsors, Happy Hemp Pharmacy, The Massage, and Riverfront Medicine DPC. Logically Emotional starts now.
Welcome to Logically Emotional, the place where you can come to get answers to questions you probably didn't even know that you had. And at some point, I actually will get that intro done.
Yeah, you'll get it. You'll get there. You'll get there.
Maybe.
We'll work on it.
Possibly. So, hey, I'm Rebecca. This is Sting. And
hello.
We're here to talk about some really cool stuff.
And I'm really nervous today. I'm super nervous today. I'll tell you why. So in the world of online dating, which I'm in now, yay, you there's people's professions and things like that. And I'll swipe and see a psychologist. And I'm like, well, my ex-wife thought she was one. And that was bad enough. So I don't know that I actually want to be in a relationship with one. So, it's like, oh, my ex-wife left or whatever. And then today's guest is a body language expert.
Yes.
And I forgot about that when I first walked in the room. And now looking back, she's been analyzing me this whole time, and I'm terrified of what she's going to tell me.
We might actually ask her to talk about that towards the end of the podcast.
I love it.
Like, hey,
I love it.
What did you get out of us two during the whole podcast? So yeah, guys, we are super excited to have Dr. Donna Van Natten. She is the body language doctor. She is local to the Chattanooga area and published author. I just downloaded Image Scrimmage onto my Kindle so that I can read it wherever I am.
Nice.
And quite frankly, I've learned a couple things about myself that probably didn't like, but I will be fixing. And giggled. Definitely, this lady's got a great sense of humor. So, Image Scrimmage, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it in Barnes & Noble, a whole bunch of places. January 7th.
Is when it was released, yeah. So
No.
that was the first one. January 7th, there is a new one that just came out. So tell us about the new book and what it is centered on.
The new book is called The Body Language of Politics.
Ooh.
Imagine that.
You can definitely hold that one up.
Here's the best part. Deciding who is lying, who's sincere, and how you'll vote.
Oh.
Wow.
Kind of good timing, don't you think?
That is good. Yeah, welcome to 2020.
I love it.
It'll be a long year for some people.
No doubt. So that the whole body language thing, we talked about this yesterday as we were discussing you being on the show. The whole idea behind body language is something that's so important in everything, whether it's a business meeting, whether it's a relationship, a first date, whatever the case may be. Body language is so important, but it's not something you think about. It's very subconscious, subliminal kind of deal. But we are, even though it is subconscious, we're making assumptions about the other person right off the bat.
All the time. And actually more than verbal. I mean, verbal, communication is, plus or minus 10%. Nonverbal is 90%. If you think about if you were to take away the spoken word, you could communicate. I mean, heck, you've been married.
Oh, yeah.
and divorced.
Yeah, unsuccessfully, but yes, we've been there.
How is that communication working out? Right. A good rolling of the eye or a hand placement, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So we like to say that because we talk, we're good communicators, but in reality, it's our nonverbal, in particular our body language, is half of how we're communicating. And we size people up, and when we watch things, and we're a visual creature. Our brains, soak it in 80+% through our visual. And so when people say, don't worry about what things look like, I'm like, you might want to worry a little bit about how things, look.
I like the whole idea. Like, we're always looking at people, judging people from their body language, how this one's standing, their hands on their hips, or their arms crossed and stuff. But what we don't think about is while we are analyzing other people, they're totally analyzing us, and we have really, unless you're trained or in something, you don't know what your body language is putting off. Like, you are just not aware that people perceive you as a complete and utter dick.
Well, that's why when you go to Walmart, you're like, let me get my phone out. Yeah. That was photo worthy.
And it's not only that, but I think especially like if you are an anxiety-driven person, we're probably going to make your life a lot worse during this hour because you're not only worried about walking in the party, thinking about what you're going to say or what impression you're going to leave. Now you got to think about how you're going to stand
right, but how
what
fast
you're going to
you
do.
walk in, where do you stand? Where are your hands? What are your shoulders, slumped? Do you make eye contact? We're an eye contact culture. So immediately when somebody doesn't look at us in the eye, we're like, sneaky, or well, what's wrong with them? Why won't they look at me? And if they do and glance away, you're like, nervous,
sheepish,
crazy.
Well, we were talking about this the other day about like the networking events, and I've met so many people who are self-proclaimed introverts, but they own their own businesses and feel like they have to get out, but they don't know how to approach people. And so I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to say, hey guys, you know what? If you learn your own body language, you're going to have a little bit more confidence going into that room.
Absolutely.
No
right. I mean, even just when you think about it, when you make introductions and shaking hands, I mean, how quickly do we size somebody up based on a handshake?
Instantly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so do you squeeze too hard? Do you squeeze too light?
Do you limp it?
Do you do the dead fish kind of thing?
Is it sweaty? Do they do they pump it up and down like they're going to knock it out of the socket kind of thing?
Right.
Wait. What about the people who are germaphobes who don't want to shake hands? Like, is it acceptable to elbow?
Well, that also has its own set of things like, oh, that's not appropriate. I mean, and really a germaphobe thing or not wanting to be touched, we do touch. I mean, our skin is a living organism, and so it's very powerful to touch. Back in the day, that's how you got the tractor loan. Can you imagine if you were like, thanks.
Right.
You're like, something's wrong
Fist
with
pump,
that.
bro.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. Here's your $1 million loan.
Right.
Yeah, kind of thing.
So one thing that you hear in business all the time is when you walk in a place, act like you own the room. Have that confidence, act like you own the room. But you don't want to come in there too arrogant, too cocky, too much swagger. So what is the ideal body language to walk in and act like you're the authority in the room, but do it without looking like a jackass?
Oh, I mean, right. Don't wear your donkey suit.
Right, absolutely.
So I think there's some really clear-cut things. First of all, you have to have erect body posture. If you're slumping, people are like hiding or, what's going on. So your carriage has to be up, chest out, if you will. Another big one is eye contact. When you walk in, people want you to make eye contact. And ideally, before you walk into the room, you want to be smiling. Almost like you just walked in smiling versus walking in, scoping, and then kind of thing.
Right.
Smile before you enter the room. And then, the placement of the face or the head itself there's confidence and arrogance. And it has to do with a subtle tilting of the nose, or snubbing your nose out. We have these great idioms on human things, of like we use a body part to make a statement kind of thing. And, like snub your nose at or, grows like Pinocchio's nose kind of thing.
Huh.
And so just how high your chin is elevated, it says confidence versus arrogance. We don't want to be looked down on, if you will. Like I'm very tall. And so when I put heels on, I'm 6'3" when I walk in a room. And so I don't have to worry about being like noticed.
Oh, you already own the room.
Here
Already own the
an
room.
avatar has entered the room. And so, right. Oh, I cover my blueness up, if you will. But so if anything, I want to make sure that whoever I engage with, I don't intimidate,
Right.
how close I get. And if it's a smaller stature person, maybe stand back just a little bit and make them feel larger or watch how wide your stance is, and men tend to have a wider stance than females or how you cross your legs. And another thing about the confidence is showing your hands. People that are insecure, they'll usually put the hands, in the pockets. They'll cross the arms on the chest. They'll put them behind them. But we like to see hands.
Huh.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
You told me the other day, actually, that I had this power walk.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned my walk.
Like you own your space, just like with your walk. You're just like...
And it's the weirdest thing. When you're hanging out with Rebecca, she has no problem just throwing out words that make you go, what the fuck? And I'm just walking, right? And she's like, God, your walk is so sexy. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? You said sexy. You had a couple of drinks. You said sexy.
I meant sexy in a very powerful
Yeah, and it's like a power walk. But now I'm like...
Because you have a
Do I come across as an ass? I don't have an ass. No, it looks like a frog stood up put on a pair of jeans. It's terrible.
When you're walking, you own the space that you are in, and you look very confident.
And I never think about it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things I never consider. That's why everybody thinks I'm an asshole. I mean, it fascinates me how much, especially you're talking about 80% is visual. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's a big processing, right? What do we see? And so I think the key word here is being intentional. You know, do I want to be intentional and intimidate? If you know and you've heard that before, like, oh, I've that's not the first time I've heard that. Then if you're intentional, you might back off a little bit, you know, or not have such swag. Exactly.
Yeah. Got that swag, girl.
Right, on your online dating swag.
Oh, my online dating is far from swaggish. Yeah. It's very, very much unswag-like. But anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, so what other things can you do with your body that, let's just say I'm insecure, right? But I need to get out there and be a little bit more assertive and social and whatever it is.
I think work on your handshake. I mean, statistically, men don't want to shake women's hands.
I've noticed that.
Well, and there's a reason for it. I mean, and you know, men that are in the room here right now, fair enough. You're like, oh, there's a guy, put her there. There's another guy, put her there. There's a woman. Oh, what do I do? I know I should. Does she want to show? Is that a subtle wave? Do we little like almost a curtsy? Women, but there's reason for it. I mean, anatomically, okay, hold your hands up, both of you. Hold your hands up. Okay. Now, turn them towards each other. Well, Rebecca, hold your other hand up. Now, look at that. You've got a mug, and then you have a delicate little wallflower.
That is dominance right
so
there.
that alone,
I will crush you.
right, we will remember that. And so in saying that, the smaller hand person has to acknowledge that the bigger hand person, we call it takes longer to get to the party. So we're going to do a little simulation here since we have visual. So go in like you're going for a handshake, but I want you to go really slow. Now, straight palms. No. I want you to slide your palms together. Now, stop right there. Now, if you notice, at Rebecca's palm, you've arrived at the party, right? All covered.
Hey-o.
And what she wants to naturally do is squeeze down.
Here, turn this way.
See that? Squeeze. Yeah. See, he's unsatisfied.
You're totally not at the party right now.
So, Rebecca, if you had to squeeze right now, you would squeeze his fingers. And men are like, oh, yeah, that. Let's skip it next time. So you have to acknowledge that he still needs to get to the party. So keep sliding until your thumbs hook. And that little place right there is called the perlicue. The little.
Now I'm eating your wrist.
That's right.
That's okay.
But once you feel the thumbs hook or perlicue, then both clamp down. Now, big hand person, you have to remember that your PSI could crush her hand.
That is true, yes.
Right. So you have to lighten up, because I'll tell you right now, anybody who is on the receiving hand of being crushed, you know, the ring imprinting goes, I don't like you.
Right.
Ever. Yes.
Yeah, and look where my fingers, like...
But that part's okay. It has to do with the palms. Right. And the other thing you want to do is, are they vertical? So did somebody palm somebody? You know, even if you look politically, who's got the upper hand? You know, and you know, like a belly up fish. This is the exposed side, you know, versus gotcha. So if he'd come in like, you know, running hot, and you'd be like, oh gosh, that's so intimidating.
So what is the double? Okay, so and I've noticed this. One of my business partners does this a lot.
Let's see it.
When they.
Oh yeah.
How are you?
Oh, right, like the hand hug.
Is that showing you can be comfortable with me, or is that showing I want the power in the room?
I'll take a little bit of the power. You can't escape from it, right?
No. Right.
Now, and most people on that would say, I didn't appreciate that. My preacher might do that, and I couldn't get out of it though. But some people feel like it's a hug embrace
like
of
a comfort.
Hand.
Yeah.
But you almost have to ask for that. Kind of like today's hug world. You know, people going for a hug, and you're like, no. You have to go. You know, people know what this means.
Yeah, I am a total hugger.
Right.
But I've learned to say, is it okay if I come in for a hug?
Yeah.
Our hug's good?
Yeah. You know? And then the whole hugging thing of male and female. You know, females
totally ass out if I don't know you.
That's right. Because that hand from a male creeping around by that rib cage. You're like,
and then the whole, you know, the whole
TP.
How close are the pelvises, right? You don't want to give the guy the wrong impression, but you don't want to.
And that's how you tell the nature of the relationship.
Hey, I'll take the wrong impression every time.
You're like my pelvis.
Closest I've been in a while.
That's right. Right. As Shakira said, the hips don't lie.
Yes, but you're right. You do want to establish, okay, this is we're friendly, but it's not that friendly.
Right. We won't, I mean, if you think about it, if you look at the whole body, the pelvis or the hip structure connects the lower body with the upper body. So it's very powerful. Shakira said the hips don't lie and they move forward. We are able
that music video. God.
We can tilt and we can move forward with them and move back. Sorry. So, and it, anatomically and as a human, it stores our reproductive organs.
Right.
So when we're attracted to something, we are more apt to move our body and our hip structure towards that. If we don't, we back it off. Now, as little kids, we push off, like back up.
Right.
Yeah.
Do that at work now, and it's called assault.
Right.
But we will rock back and forth, of interest, or back up just a little bit, especially if someone comes into our space or our proxemics, if you will, a little too much. We don't want to step back and go, that's obvious. But we're like, you're too close to me right now on the unwritten rules of space.
Oh no, I'm not afraid to go. 3 feet. This
My
is
dance space, my dance space, right?
Yeah, this is mine. Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard at work because people feel, by height or somebody in a power authority, they get close. I mean, and even just talking about, politically, look at when you're at the Democrat lineup, a small female, a tall male, when you get the two males together, what's the handshake? How close do they get? Do you grab the elbow? Do you grab the shoulder? Do you go in for that pat, pat, pat hug?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And turn the sound off the TV. You're like, it's a complete show without them talking.
Oh, dude, we're going to get her book, and then we're going to watch stuff without the sound on.
We should just do that and let her commentate the entire time. That would be great.
Yeah, I actually tape them and do that. In the back of the book, there's actually a worksheet to say, look for these 30 things when you're to take a different angle, be intentional with it.
So we're talking about, let me jump back just a hair to the women's handshake, because this is something that we have seen progress as culture has progressed, especially in the last few years. It was respectful. I was taught that it was respectful to do the dainty, almost dead fish handshake with a female. I know. And you're rolling your eyes at me. I know.
I did.
And now that we're at this point where women of power, we've seen so many cultural changes as far as pay equality, the Me Too movement. We've seen all these cultural changes that have been about being a strong woman. Now women expect, just like with your eye roll, to have the same, hard, firm handshake that a man would give. So it's very, and I'm 31, it's not like I'm some kind of old soul that's stuck in the way that, things were done back then, but it's everybody is constantly progressing, and we're watching it in body language, and that to me is probably the biggest example right now when it comes to cultural differences in body language that I've ever seen.
Well, and I think as far as a gender, women need to watch male behavior, and emulate it to a sense. If men stand up to shake hands, she should stand up to shake the hand as well, and the rule of thumb is women should initiate the handshake, because I'll tell you, the minute a woman shakes hands, the guy goes, oh, thank God, okay.
Now I know what to do.
Right, now I know what to do. She's good with that, and without telling me. But it's an equal place at the table. And at the same time, men need to look around and make sure, are women a part of the conversation or the circle or the boys club, or are they just off by themselves? I was recently at an event, and I serve on several boards, and it's male dominated, normal. And I walked in, and, there was a subtle look over, but then they continued, the group of males, in their own circle, if you will. And I was like, hey, come on, guys. You really should come over and, make an effort, if you will, as you would have done with a Tom or a Marcus,
Sure.
A Miguel kind of thing. And what about a Donna? And interestingly enough, about 5 minutes later, another female came in, a younger female, and guess exactly where she went?
To you.
Right to me.
Yep.
And by the end of it, my whole table for the luncheon was all females.
Right.
And I'm like, So it does require on both parts, to kind of say. Now, I will say at one point, about 10 minutes into waiting before other people arrived, one of the males did break away and come up, and started chatting. But he was also the head of the organization. So I thought maybe a little more, intentional. Yeah, a little more intentional with it, or aware. And I don't think it's done, spitefully, or it's just, we just know, if you know better, do better. Now that you know, try. Because everybody has a wife, everybody has a sister, a cousin, an aunt, a daughter, and what a gift to teach them earlier. Some women, they're a little older, maybe out of the workforce, and it's different when you come back 20 years later, kind of thing, and you're like, how do I navigate this?
Yes.
You know, as we work for everything. So sure, there are some great gender dynamic differences for both, and they're both just wonderful, you know, in their own rights.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Very
so let's get out of the workforce if you don't mind.
Sure.
Although it is very important, and you know what Chattanooga is like, booming with entrepreneurs and hiring, and that's all great. But what about dealing with your children, right? Okay, because you know that what's coming out of their mouth, but actually when they're teenagers, sometimes what comes out of their mouth is what their body is saying to you. But when they don't want to talk to you, they want to talk to you about something, right? But they don't know how to approach you, or they've eaten the whole bag of Oreos, and when you call them on it, they're like, "No, I didn't do that."
Lying or deception, right?
Yes, you know, or
actually,
covering up stuff. But how do you as a parent, right? Deal with that? Well, what are some of the signs? Like, I mean, I know how I would deal with it, but
we have to learn to lie. It is part of being human, and so it's a good thing.
Question mark?
Right, because I mean, if you sent your child to school and they, you know, there was an obese child and they were like, "You're fat," I mean, that's quite demonstrative, however, quite painful. Or you know, "You're not attractive." So we want our children to learn how to navigate kindly, you know, deception. Because we need it as adults. You know, it makes us a social creature. You know, when your best friend says to you, you know, "How's my new hairstyle?" And you're like, it is, your face looks wonderful. Right. You look so happy with that kind of thing. You know, versus just being brutally honest.
Right.
That's not going to make us have friends for long. And so as a parent, we have to acknowledge that, first of all, when our kids aren't being honest with us, you know, and there are signs, you know, there's the obvious eye, look away, but the body will turn away also. The hands will disappear. Little kids will actually, they're quite overt with it. They'll be like, you know, "Did you do that?" And they're like, "No."
Right.
Now, when you're an adult and somebody says, you know, "Did you bump my car?" And you're like, "No."
Right. That's totally not going to work.
Well, and if you think about it, as people, we typically don't touch our face. You know, our hands don't touch our face, and that's our baseline behavior. But if we trigger an emotion, you know, be it deception, happiness, anxiousness, anger, insecurity, our hands will go to our face and a gesture will happen, you know, insecurity. And I love guys with, you know, the facial hair.
I was going to ask you about this.
Let's talk about that for a second.
The playing, the twirling,
Well, okay.
I do that all the damn time.
Now I'm going to give you some terminology that goes with that, so you'll always remember me.
Well, a lot of time to me, it's when I'm in thought.
Oh, it's self-soothing. And so if you think about it, as infants, it's how we get fed. You know, it's this, I mean, take your finger and run it. It's very sensitive around our mouth because we had to find the source of food, a nipple, you know, the bottle and so forth. And so we're like very sensitive. So when you think about it, for self-soothing, like being fed, so now you put some facial hair on it, and it's actually called oral fixation. Is its real name makes sense, right? And you will soothe yourself that way. A female might play with a necklace, you know, something around the neck, or might twirl the hair. You know, it's interesting, hormonally speaking, as we are showing interest towards a male. Think about the animal kingdom, you know, the big lioness. You'll be like, "Hello, it's so nice to meet you." It is almost predictable. So you'll appreciate this now that you're back in dating world. So if you're talking,
I need a new co-host.
Yeah.
What?
You're not playing with your hair, obviously. You're like, but if you're talking to a female and suddenly you see a lot of like, "Oh my gosh, that's so funny, that's so interesting," and you're like, "Oh my gosh, she's telling me she's interested in me," right?
Yeah, I just burned that like way back here where I needed to stay.
Right.
It's perfect.
So you'll have to text me when you're like, "She did that."
Nailed it.
Only date girls with long hair so I can.
Right, yeah.
Kind of thing. So yeah, so back to how do we as a parent see that? Well, we watch them. You know, and we'll watch them make a transition. If you start talking and they don't want to hear it, you'll see the hands kind of go north toward the ear. They might play with an earring, or I've actually seen them curl the ear in, you know, like you'll see a yawning, because, you know, when you yawn, it messes with the, you know, eustachian tube, right? And you're like, And I know that as a parent, as I would be on one of my, explanations extraordinaire.
Yeah.
I would begin to notice like yawning, and I'm like, oh, you're done. But, we're kind of the same way. Well, if we're done with somebody talking, we'll kind of give all those clues of like, I'm kind of done. Yeah. Look at that watch and, and woo, getting,
I'd hate to tell you to shut the hell up.
So it's about time.
It's been great, yawn. Yeah. So as a parent, just watch their bodies. They're going to say what they've probably been trained to say. But if you watch their bodies and they curl up or they open up, and how they cross their arms across their body, or if they're pretty easygoing and just kind of lay around, they fear no threat. And we are Homo sapiens, so we are animals. And so if I always think, watch some National Geographic or turn on those channel and watch the tundra.
Right.
They go to the water hole, we go to the water cooler. Who's at the top of the hill? Who's in the top of the building? Who has the biggest lair? Who has the master bedroom?
Gotcha.
Thank God we do not eat our young.
Yeah, that's a plus.
That's a plus.
That's a plus.
That is a plus.
But, we feel a lot of the same things, very animalistic, if you will. And that's why they're easy to identify, is because they're so primal. If you think about our brain, we have our primitive brain, brainstem, and that has our emotions all in it. Then over time, we have the nice fluffy cortex of thought.
Right.
And the two do not play well together. Think about that. When you're fighting with somebody emotional, the last thing you want to hear is, well, I want to talk to you, with using your brain. You're like, oh, no. That's not going to happen.
So in a world where really face-to-face conversation has declined so much, in a texting world, how, I don't know what the right word is, I'm assuming people are forgetting some of the body language things that they maybe once knew, as far as what to look for, what to be on the lookout for when having a conversation, whether it's relationship-oriented or otherwise, because we have just kind of ixnayed that from our existence.
Yes and no. We have modified to make up for it. Do you remember the semicolon or colon parenthesis that suddenly you're like, those two little symbols in type now became a smiley face or a sad face? So we as a human want to see another human. And now we have avatars and we have Bitmoji.
The emojis, yeah.
Yes, we do. And we love them. And we have even the hearts, the little thumbs up. So we're going to continue as a social creature to, bring in the human part.
Ooh, I'm just going to let her start analyzing my conversation. That's your next book, by the way. I'm going to let you just analyze my conversations.
Oh my God.
And see what the emojis are really telling me.
And I'm like, okay, so let's get some new ones.
It's just, that is fascinating. I've never thought about it that way, that the emojis and the Bitmojis and things like that
right,
we see so much.
And people even say, like, before they get started, because the text can be cold, and we've heard the things about don't use bold or what color you're using. Color's powerful too. But we go a long way to make sure that we're picking the right, visual to go with our words.
Right.
Sure.
Like if your words might be a little bit harsh, then it's smiley face at the end. 5
smiley faces.
Right.
You're like, wow. Versus the one or the wink one or a little crying one. You could just need the little, you don't have to use
text.
text.
Or even just a thumbs up.
Yep. And that's even become part of a mass, popular social media has the quick thumb, like everything's okay. Because thumbs are fascinating, on our phalanges here. Thumbs are actually a sign of confidence. So if a man puts his hands in his pockets
with his thumbs out,
it's confidence.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Oh yeah, look at movie stars.
I don't mean
posing. That's right. You do that all the time. Confidence.
Or I'll tuck my thumb in my belt loop. I have a bad habit of doing that, like putting my hands in my pocket.
But your thumb, but
it's still there.
But even when you cross your arms, cross your arms. It's all cross our arms. Do you see your thumbs or do they disappear? If you run into somebody whose thumbs are saying, you're like, this is not an insecurity kind of thing or a defensive thing.
If there's only one thumb up,
it's still right.
I do this. Wow. Yeah.
Oh my God, we're like twinsies.
We are. Oh my God.
You're thumb twinsies.
That's incredible. So it's a sign of confidence.
Oh, most definitely. And it's funny. I get a kick out of it. There's one profession that actually puts their picture on their business cards. Do you know what it is?
Realtors.
Realtors, of course. Yeah. And if you'll notice, they come flying around that, and it looks like this.
Right.
Like, you don't know me, but buy a house from me.
Right.
Drop down $500,000. Trust me. You see my thumbs. Yeah, exactly. We have a lot of movements with our thumbs that show, I mean, I joke with people and I'm like, what's this mean? Thumbs
up.
Yeah.
It's all good,
right?
It's all good.
What's this mean?
It's bad.
Oh, what's this mean?
It all just went to shit.
I'm making a left turn.
No, it means hitchhiking.
Oh,
but,
hitchhiking,
you know,
that makes
Yeah.
it's a joke. but it's true.
Damn
People
it. I failed the test.
That's okay. That's all right. We'll try again on another day. No, so we don't think about our thumbs,
Right.
but they really do show a lot of nonverbal.
So why body language for you?
Well, I will say that 30 years ago, giving myself away, I was a junior high school teacher. Yeah, and you know what they say about that middle school year? You either love it or run. Right. They smell fear.
Right.
And I was fascinated with them. I have an undergrad in sociology, so I would love people in groups. Naturally, I thought, gosh, how do humans behave? And of course, being a natural, sometimes say talker or communicator, written or spoken, it came very easily to me. And so it kind of made sense to how do people talk or communicate? And so I just pursued it with my degrees, and I was, I went from education, K-12 education, and then into, as my mom said, the world is your classroom. And so
Right.
I see an audience, and I'm like, oh, look at them all ripe for discussion. And they don't know as soon as they walk in and they're looking for their seats or everything going on. I'm like, oh, and like I said, the gender dynamics, or it could be age or something that they wear, and how they do their hair or their glasses or their shoes. Because that's all, you intentionally put it on your body. You know. So what is it saying? If you see glasses hanging around the neck on a lanyard, and you're in banking and you're like, can't keep up with your glasses. Can you keep up with my money?
Yeah.
Or if you take the sunglasses and you still stab them in your hair, you're like, you just spent all that money on your hair, and then you took this artifact and stabbed it, kind of thing.
Right.
Because it's right. Or my favorite's the guys that put the sunglasses behind their neck.
That drives me crazy.
Yeah, women hate that. Men think that's really cool because I'll be in an audience and I'll get the guys to raise their hand. Who does that? And you're like, oh, I'm so cool. I do that. And I'm like, all right, now, ladies in the room, how many of you like that? And it's like crickets. And all the men are like, so I'm sure I've damaged some people now. When they go out, they're like, never put them there again. Yeah. And then your hat on backwards. I mean, it's kind of sunny in here with the lights and so forth, but it's a baseball hat, so it makes you think sports. Or was my hair a mess? Or some people that are losing their hair. Why do you choose to wear a ball cap backwards?
I don't know. I just
comfort.
Yeah, I guess it's comfort. It's really I'm not losing my hair.
Actually, you did not do your hair today. No.
I didn't do my hair today. It was probably based out of laziness, because I was just like, I don't give a damn. I'm just going to throw a hat on.
Right. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that, but just remember that if you knew you were going to an important meeting.
Now, if I were to stand up, you would be able to tell that the sporty aspect was completely not the case.
But you have your NASA shirt on, so there's I'm
a hell of a dart player, but that's about it. Anyway.
I'm into the stars, and yeah.
No, I'm not even that either. I just, whatever.
So what about
I'm just giving mixed signals all over the place today.
You are.
No, it's one full package.
This guy has no damn clue.
It's all over the place.
Hello, ladies.
So what about the
Hello, ladies. Yeah. So, what kind of gal are you hoping to attract there?
A very, very sad one at this point. I literally, I look like I'm homeless today.
You do.
Yeah.
You don't. Well, I was gonna say you don't
it's
usually.
raining out, But
Yeah, I totally went for comfort. Like, I'm just gonna sleep
Dude,
in.
I'm
I don't
still
care.
in my work clothes.
It's okay to be in comfort. It's cold out, and we're kind of layering up just in case the blizzard comes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, right. Or you get stuck in traffic with all the rain. But anyway, what about the shifting of the eyes? If you look up and to the right and down, I mean, is that all true, or is that just something that's been carried over from movies?
Just to let you know, pathological liars will look at you and lie as the day is long. No, there is not that rule of if you're looking at me, you're telling the truth. If you're looking away,
what was it? If you're looking to the right, you're making up a lie because your left brain is the creative side, or whatever.
Actually, our brains are fairly, they have a lot of crossover actually. So no, sometimes people will look up to kind of retrieve information, because you have the embed, store, and retrieve process.
Right.
Because our brains are really designed to let things go. That's why you go to the grocery store and you're like, I just need 5 things, and then you get there and you're like, 1. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's 5 things. What happened to these 2? Well, we're designed to let it go because if you think about it, our brain is a human computer. We have to. We're constantly taking in and aware, aware. Think about driving. You get home and you're like, How did I get here? Hope it was a good trip home. Right.
Oh God, I do that all the time. I thought I was just crazy. Perfect. That makes me feel so much
No,
better.
because your brain, you're just on autopilot. Your
Yes.
brain's doing other shit.
But
And
if
it's
suddenly
dumped.
something darted out, you'd be,
Right.
and then you all of a sudden you have that flood of adrenaline, and your heart races.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh God, okay, and it almost hurts as the glucose is trying to
Yes.
get out of your muscles. You're like, okay, now that I'm completely panicked,
Yeah, I know exactly where I am.
exactly, I'm aware now.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so if you think about it, we're just designed to let things go. So we have to be that's where I come back and I talk about being intentional, about the image that you want to put off. Whether I always say to people that are heading into, go pick up something, just swing by and pick it up. I'm like, be careful. That first impression could be a long lasting impression
Right.
kind of thing, and so that's why you always, grab a blazer in the car, an extra pair of shoes in the car, or, if women choose to wear makeup, that have that and so forth. Right. Because you only get, the rule of thumb of you only get one chance to make a first impression is powerful.
Right.
And we
Very
look
true.
at a lot of things. I mean, economics, religion, gender, there's a lot of different dynamics that we look at. And I always say, like, for those that are going for the job interview, that started in the parking lot, right? When you arrive.
Right.
When there's some camera in today's world.
Yeah.
I'm like, how you got out, what you pulled on, what were you doing? How long were you in the car? How did
Yeah.
you walk? Yeah.
Sure.
Well, it's kind of like I was talking to the kids when the phones came out and everything, and what you're saying about hair and clothes and presentation and first impressions. I'm telling my kids, like, you're kind of branding yourself on social media. So how do you want to present yourself to the world?
Right.
Because a lot of this, I mean, they have Snapchat now, which it deletes it, but
Sure.
yeah, exactly.
Subjectively.
But yeah, it's what do you want to post on your Facebook page? And just remember, you
Yes.
are going to be getting interviewed for a job at some point, or
Right. Edit the photo. Take the can of beer out.
Right.
Not in your case. You're over 21. Way over 21.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Just judging away over there. No, I'm kidding.
But you know what people do, and I work with a lot of companies who say that when they're doing, their hiring screening process, they do look at social media.
Right.
Oh, it's
fair
become
game.
the norm now. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you're, partying it up with your friends and in that, look, you're like, just be aware that everybody knew what you were
Yeah,
doing.
it kind of blows my mind how many times you see people just smoking, a blunt
Like no big deal.
on their Facebook profile
Right,
picture.
right.
It's like, hey, dumbass, first of all,
You're going
you're
for
a
a drug
criminal.
screening.
Second of all, not criminally speaking, not on all states, we know this, but I'm just saying, in our state, you're a criminal, and you clearly, cannot be trusted to follow
The rules.
The rules.
Right.
And not only that, you're probably going to come in here
Unreliable.
intoxicated and be a liability. So, I mean, there's issues everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's-
No argument. I mean, and a picture is so powerful, and it's not only the image in the picture, it's the complete surroundings,
Right.
and like when I was working on the research for the politics book coming out, you can look at the candidate and you're looking for the flag and you're looking for the color of, in the case of a suit, and a woman, how feminine is her outfit?
Right.
Are they wearing glasses? But then you want to look around, is there a baby? Do you see flags waving in the background? What's the composition of the crowd? And the posters that you see. So it's the entire
Yes, it's
frame
all of
that
it.
really matters.
Right.
One thing I did notice, not to cut you, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One thing I did notice in the 2016 election, and I don't want to get too political. I know your book is on politics. I don't want to get
No,
political,
it's about,
but
it's about people on TV.
okay, perfect. But I did notice that you said the flag. So I noticed that one candidate never wore a flag on her lapel.
Huh.
Every debate I watched.
Everybody noticed that. I mean, not everybody.
Right.
But, yes.
But I'm sitting here going, huh. And I don't know why it bothered me.
because it's part of the uniform for that profession.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess that's it. I
It'd be
guess it's
somebody
just like you're
like
violating
the UPS
dress
driver,
code.
like wearing, white socks. You're like, you're brown.
Yeah. What the hell are you doing, bro? It was just like in every debate, I just kept noticing that. And I really don't pay that much attention usually.
You noticed.
But in that situation, and it's still obviously, I mean, it,
Right.
Well, think about
It
that what's
scarred
coming
me.
on TV now when you see them on a stage or they're in a small town America. You know, how they set that stage up from the flag on the right or left or the waving in the background, and how many children, are they down at their level? Obama held babies that weren't his own,
Right.
and do they shake their little hands? And how many women are, in the frame or the video that was captured? All of that is really how we judge our candidates, and actually it's how we judge people. Think about it. When you see a picture on social media, first of all, when it's you're in it, you look at you. You're like, oh, how do I look? Okay, my eyes are open. I look pretty good. Okay, before you look at anybody else, and everybody else could have their eyes are closed, and you're like, that's a great picture.
Yeah, I look phenomenal.
Wait, not to get too graphic, but there was that one of a woman taking a selfie in the bathroom, right? And I mean, she just looked beautiful, but she had a suction cupped penis in her shower that was right there in the background.
Well, I always think
and
about that.
everybody noticed
right.
that.
Yeah, we didn't see her.
Nobody noticed her.
And, and remember this for your dating profile.
Yeah.
If you have to take it in the bathroom, it makes a couple things. One, have you not one friend that could have taken it for you? And number two, do we want to see your bathroom,
right.
Your shower,
No.
Your commode, your products, but look how many are taken in the bathroom because there's a mirror. I'm thinking one friend, or in today's camera world, timer.
Yeah.
Selfie outside
What?
even.
Absolutely.
What?
Yeah, too many in the bathroom with the shower in the background look.
Yes, definitely. So, what are some other? How about let's talk spouses / significant others. What are some? I know, like the whole joke about women, like, "Hey, honey, how are you?" Fine.
Right.
Oh God, I get that all the time.
That's tone.
Fine.
That's tone, which is
But
about
how do
40%, right?
Would you like to talk about it? No.
And actually,
When she's not being verbal, or he's not, because there are a lot of people out there that don't know how to communicate with each other. Like, hey, you know what? You're just being a jerk, and you're being a bitch, and let's talk this out. It's the silence.
But it's your bodies are saying so much, right? And this, and this is perfectly, couldn't have led into it better. That this is the body language for women book coming out. There's a whole chapter on relationships, a whole chapter on female friendships, a whole chapter on self-image. Where all this comes from. So
February, March, April.
Yeah, hang tight. Right, how many days is that?
I got 4 months.
May 5th. May 5th.
Maybe if you're really nice, we get an advance copy.
I wish we'd get it. Yeah. Talk to that publisher. Yeah, I think this one right here is my advanced copy. At the time, and it's one of 20. So they're
Oh, nice.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm like, where are the other 19?
Hello.
Because I don't have them. So when you think about it for relationship sense, sure, a lot of it's, and it goes through such incredible phases, of distance, how much space, and then eye contact and tone. You could say the same thing of, take the trash out versus take that trash out, right? So tone, and I probably should have shared this earlier. When you think about communication, it's 3 elements. It's words, tone, and body. And collectively it's 100%. And so by far words are the least, unless you take away the visual, then the words really ramp up, like an email or a text where you can't see the person. You're like, oh, I know what that word really meant, kind of thing. Or that memo or email, you're like, no. If I'd have just said it to you, it'd have been so much easier.
Right.
And so, and speaking of that, is we talk about the phones, and we're not making eye contact as much. And it really is annoying to particularly certain generations, who demand eye contact, but if you're with your own peer group, it's not as big of a deal, as far as communication that way. But remember that we like to make eye contact, and we love it when somebody stops on their phone, looks up, and you're like, hello, you're looking at me. Yay. Even when people are driving, even though it says in Tennessee, it's illegal to be on your phone, and you look over and someone's on their phone, you're like, you're bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Your eye contact should be on looking at me or ahead, kind of thing. But yeah, couples definitely communicate non-verbally, and from fighting to negotiation, how you're going to move around the house, when you're out with other couples, how you touch each other, proxemics, where you touch,
Right.
kind of thing, how you dress with each other, volume. When you get back to tone, that's so powerful. There's things in our control, like, not so much amplitude or how loud you are, but how fast you talk, how long you talk,
Right.
the space between you and me talking, called the latency period. Do you run over each other? Like, I couldn't even finish my words and you just jumped in. And then, of course, grammatical errors, like you slaughtered the language. That's not how you pronounce that.
Right.
You're like, you're a moron kind of thing.
Dumbass.
So sure, all of that definitely plays into nonverbal communication tone.
It's incredible. So talking about the book, so it just released last week. It's called The Body Language of Politics. And this is very incredible to me. I love politics. I know that's such a weird thing, but
I hate it.
I love
But
politics.
I love people watching and
There you go.
analyzing and making up my own stories about them.
And obviously, when it comes to body language and politics, you've seen it for years. I mean, we can track this back to, I'm sure ancient times and leaders and things like that. But when it came really mainstream would be the 1960 debate between Kennedy and Nixon.
Right.
And when that debate was televised, that's really when the world said, hey,
First time.
body language matters
Right.
when it comes to trusting a candidate.
Absolutely. From seeing it sweat,
Yes.
to the color of the suits, to the color
Yes.
of the background of the stage,
And it was all black and white, that first debate, but Nixon, you could tell, was just completely shaken.
Well, what had happened was his team, Nixon's team, had said, "What color backdrop will the stage be?" And they had told them, it'll be like black. So he wore gray. Well, when he got there, the background was gray.
Right.
And of course, Kennedy was in a dark suit. And the other thing that was going on is that Nixon had hurt his leg. And so he was in pain. And then when he got to the studio, he hit it again. So he was really in a lot of physical pain. And so, you throw in the hot lights, you throw in, the good looking candidate. And it was just ripe for, I'm not going to look very good on this kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. So he may have been sweating for the camera lights, but he wasn't feeling well.
Right.
And then you throw gray on gray.
Right.
And then you're washed out.
And now you're just
And you throw,
insecure
right.
all over the place.
You don't feel like
Right.
smiling. Then you have a big flashy smile over there with his, nice hair and his dark suit. And he looked quite dashing. And you're
Right.
like, well, here I am. And that's
Yep.
what America got to see the first debates.
Absolutely. And it became such a huge staple from that
did.
point forward. I mean,
Well, and media, media controls so much. How long you have airtime, what angle are you going to be
Yes.
at, and
How much of a clip they're going to
well,
show
and
of
today there's a shift. Now we actually have a panel of experts who sit around and feed us the answers to what they want us to see or what they picked up on, or did you notice that? And
Right.
they'll sit around like, when we're sitting around and going, so Rebecca, what did you think about when that big sigh and,
Right.
and then the
Oh,
general
yeah.
view, right? And you'll answer and
Right.
you'll provide the answer,
Right.
So there's
But
no need for
the-
me to think about it,
Right, but it's the answer that I want.
But if I like you, if whatever network, whatever network, I like you. You're, you come into my home every morning. I love having you there. Why wouldn't I believe you?
Right.
Right. So
Yeah, that's
by
true.
proxy,
Yeah.
that has a big play in it as who we like to listen to because we agree that way. And it's no different than you may not have attended a college, but you're the biggest sports fan for that college. That's your team.
Right.
And you're like, did you go there? No, that's not the point.
Right.
Right.
Same thing. And we feel that as an animal, we're a part of something, even though we're not really a part of something. Regardless of your political stance, do you really know that person? No.
Right.
But you're part of the club. You get to wear matching outfits. You get to be together and chant. And there's something just so tribal about that you're, and you're like. But if you get down to the nitty gritty and really ask specifics about whatever, like the intellectual part, you're like, I don't know.
I remember when the younger Bush was running for, and everybody's like, "Oh, I'm going to vote for him." Why? I'd sit down and have a beer with him.
yeah.
Well, and it was we know the name. Can't beat a household brand name,
Yeah.
It didn't seem threatening.
He's just a good old boy. We could just sit
Right.
there and shoot
Yep.
the shit, and he'll have a beer with
right.
me. And
I know where Texas is on the map. Yeah,
Right.
it's-
And I'm like,
It's purple.
okay.
exactly.
All right.
So yeah, there's just a lot of affiliation stuff without really necessarily knowing. But we need that and require that. And I use the sports example because most people can understand that. You know, you're like, darn right, I have a favorite team. And you're like,
it's
why?
natural to travel in packs, right? So you want to
is.
be, you know, in that whatever it is, whatever you define yourself, or whatever pack you use to
and
define
that's why
yourself.
we don't like when somebody say, you know, it doesn't matter, I don't care, I'm, you know, anti whatever, and you're like, oh,
What's wrong with you?
you're not following societal norms.
Right.
Okay, so I don't even know if you want to answer this question, but let's just have some fun. 2016 election, watching the debates. Body language wise only. Who won between Hillary and Donald?
Oh, well, okay. So, first of all, female and male came into play. Size alone, you know. And, of course, there's the famous scene that's actually in the book where he's, like, lurking behind her or how he's moving. That was all very intentional. You'll have to give it to some great handlers for him knowing how to move the room, you know, and can command presence. Trump is a large man. And so I think more importantly, when you look at today, when they're sitting on a stage with other world leaders, you know, he'll slump and become very small in size to almost give the other world leader a bigger stature. That's very intentional. I mean, you know, arms on the, you know, elbows on your knees, you know, almost like you're huddling and so forth. But when he wants to become big, he does, you know, jacket open, shoulders back, you know, commanding handshake where he'll yank you into his space, throw you off balance, you know. No, I actually believe Trump is very good at his use of body. You know, when we see his face, we see teeth, which are, you know, lower teeth, which are aggressive. You see a lot of eye contact. You know, people can go after the different elements on him. And I really run neutral. I'll go after any candidate or support the body language or nonverbals of a candidate. You know, my job is to present the research. And that was hard sometimes because, you know, I have my own views. So I'm analyzing a picture for the book and I'm like, oh, but I really kind of like that person. But boy, that's a bad picture. and so in saying that, you have to analyze the whole person. And so, you know, like Trump or not like Trump, he has some good aggressive nonverbals, let alone, you know, typically we won't act when we hit a certain emotions. We tend to freeze, you know, if we're threatened, we freeze. If we're scared, we freeze. The one nonverbal, the one emotion that makes us act is anger. You know, if you get somebody pissed off, they're going to do something. Well, think about that for the masses. How do you get people to do something? You make them angry. And so how do you make people angry? You get them riled up. Okay.
Wow, that's fascinating.
So just in that sense of a marketing strategy, and you could apply that to any situation, you know, but go back to sports where it tends to be safe. If you have a lovely talk about supporting your team and, hey, guys, we're really doing a great job. You want to get them fired up. You know, that's what the whole your mama, this kind of stuff. Get them mad and they'll act.
The visceral instinct.
Right. Yeah. And so when you go back to Hillary and you watch her calm nature, you know, or even though she wore power colors, you know, and so forth, and was obviously qualified in experience, there wasn't that passion and anger being, you know, pulled out. It was like, I'm okay. Look at what I've done.
Right.
You know, here's my record. And like I said, most people don't know the records, and it doesn't seem to matter. You know, they're loyal to what they like.
Right.
So when it comes to the Democratic lineup that we have this year in the primaries.
All 19 at one point.
Yeah, right? It's like somebody's running for governor of California again.
Right.
Some people get that joke.
I'm from California. I get that.
You got the joke. Okay, good.
Minus Linda Ronstadt.
But when it comes down to, you know, who in the party that they have up there now for the primaries, body language wise, would have the best run against a Trump?
Okay, so you have to think about who negates certain factors. So who's older, you know, who's male, who's big, who's part of the establishment. You know, you have to be able to, because Trump's older, it doesn't seem to matter that Biden's older. You know,
right.
Male.
Why is Bernie Sanders such a likable guy?
Well, if you think about the generation,
because he's always hunched.
That's the generation that likes him. It's the millennial, the younger folks, you know, generation who likes him. But who's been a big part of those lives? My kids are that age that love Bernie, and if you think about it, these kids love their grandparents.
So it's almost like a grandfather. Like
Absolutely.
Yep.
He's a grandfather, and he talked to you, and what's $10? It wasn't about that. It was, it was talking about taking care of the planet and everybody's in it together. And that generation everybody gets a participation award, right? As long as you played. Yeah. And so we all have to be in this together. So it's an absolute great play to that particular generation. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very smart.
So
right. But in saying that, with Bernie having, had a heart attack, that's a game changer, and that's sometimes when you think about Trump and his age, is that going to be, his health, which is always under suspicion, and when this airs, all these questions are out there of who's going to be narrowed down to. But let's face it, when they line them up for the debate, who's in the middle matters, and we know very clearly who's sitting in the middle. Biden is, and we know, he's got the teeth, and he's got the hair, and he's got the tan,
but he also has the creepy.
He does, and he has to own some of that stuff. But if forgiveness is given to Trump and his, gender transgressions, then how much attention will he pay to Biden, his gender transgressions? Yeah. So I think every time we hit one of these, he did it. Click. He did it. Click. Okay, now what's next?
Check. Yep. Yeah, let's move on to more important things.
Most definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do have to wrap it up a little bit, but I just want to ask you, do you have a routine? And I know this is like a normal question most podcasters ask. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but do you have something? Like, do you meditate? Do you have a certain diet lifestyle, or do you just willy-nilly your life?
Oh, no, I really appreciate my life. About 20 years ago, I had a big health scare. So it usually takes one of those, and you're like, hey, this is a gift. This is a gift.
Yeah.
No, it was just a surgery that didn't, statistically did not go like it should. But, I'm here 20 years later and love my life. I'm very appreciative, and I work hard. So people are like, you're an entrepreneur. And I'm like, I don't see myself as that. I just work hard,
right.
And, and I just was recently talking to somebody who said, how do you keep that travel schedule? I'm like, I don't know. It's a gift to fly on an airplane, and just coming back last week, and it was so late for a flight. So late. I was running in the airport in Dallas, because it looks so small on the map in the magazine.
Right.
You're like, B and A have to be close to each other. No.
Not so much.
And literally got to the gate at the last minute, and because I heard on the, last call for flight 3700 to Chattanooga. No. And ran up and he said, the seats are gone. So we had to bump you to first class. And I'm like, okay, now there's a good reason to be. So
I hate that. That's terrible.
Gosh darn it, give me that snack.
Right.
But to be able to fly and have that is wonderful, to be able to see the world,
Right.
So, what my mantra is, once you have your health, you have then you can see the world, and I have a phenomenal family and a close-knit group of friends. And as far as my diet and living that, sure, eat the good stuff, because you're going to eat the bad stuff, and work out, because we're getting older, and so move your body, because having seen my dad fail to move his body, as he was after 3 years ago, the minute you stop moving, not a good thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we are animals.
Yep.
Now, what about do you do meditation? Do you do journaling?
No, I can write pretty well. I never really feel desired to write some more.
Right.
I mean, I have had thoughts on the fourth book and so forth. I won't share those right now, but
it's my text message conversation.
Well, that is in the running. It's in the top 20.
Okay. Well,
the top 20. I love that.
Definitely have to have you back for sure.
And, I love to socialize. I mean, we can text all day, but nothing like a good dinner with a girlfriend.
Yes.
Or a friend. Yeah.
And I'm
Jerry and I will just go get beers, and you guys can go have dinner.
Okay, so
gotcha.
Image Scrimmage.
This one's out. You can grab this. So I know this one has just been released. Is it going to be out immediately, or?
Oh yeah, it's out.
Okay.
So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Skyhorse Publishing is the publisher, but they're going to redirect you to the major sellers.
You know what's great? The front of this book is green, so it's taken on our set there.
Yeah.
But anyway, there it is. It's called The Image Scrimmage. You can grab that one. That is the original book, and you can also grab this one now. It is The Body Language of Politics, and I'm really excited to look into this.
Dr. Donna will be at a book signing.
Yes, at Barnes & Noble, at Hamilton Place here in Chattanooga.
January 18th.
From 2 to 4.
Perfect. And we will make sure to put that stuff in the show notes.
And if I could just say, it was pretty cool with Barnes & Noble. They enjoyed it if an author will partner with a nonprofit. So I actually partnered proudly with the YMCA of Greater Chattanooga,
Nice.
who will also be there doing a book fair. So if you come in and when you're buying your books, whatever you buy at the cash register, and you say, I'm with the Y, they will make a donation back to the Y.
Brilliant.
Isn't that great?
Oh, that's
love
phenomenal.
that. I love that. Okay.
Really important. I think that really, hats off to Barnes & Noble for doing that.
That's phenomenal.
So come by and see. And I think Y volunteers will be there, and a couple of their different programs that they serve kids will be there. So if a kid comes up to you, you're like, make that purchase.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
Kind of
Make
thing.
the purchase.
But yeah,
So we've got about 2 minutes and 15 seconds left.
don't forget about the book in May.
Oh, yes, that is coming out.
Right, May
Right.
5th, Body Language for Women.
Okay, so I did ask you this before, and I kind of messed up the question. So Image Scrimmage is the first one you put out, 2016. 9 ways women win with body language. So what is the difference between Image Scrimmage and the book that's coming out in May?
We're doing a much deeper dive into women in the world. So from race to friendships to age to relationships to self-esteem or self-image, where it all starts.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
and that's not in that book,
Gotcha. Now, are you thinking of coming out for one for men?
Well, I had a guy ask me, say that. He goes, hey, now, body language for women means body language for men. I'm like, I hear you.
But at the same time, I think men can learn a lot reading the book about body language for women.
Oh, absolutely.
absolutely.
I mean,
Totally. And I feel that way about Image Scrimmage also, in the sense of if I had to re-subtitle it, I don't know if I would have targeted women, because I think it's so important for everybody,
Right.
when you're talking about that, because we are, a mixed society.
I was reading it, and I'm like, I really need to share this with my boyfriend. This is just cool.
It's very beneficial. Well, good.
Right.
Same kind of thing. And you know what? The politics book, I'm not going to tell you how to vote.
Right.
I want to be help you be intentional and educated. That's what this is.
Absolutely.
My intent is always to help. And the natural teacher in me says, once you have a little more knowledge, you might be like,
Right.
don't go down that rabbit hole.
Okay,
Right.
before we have to sign off, are you afraid of getting any hate mails or social media stuff from people who are just like, well, I just think what you said was wrong, or
Well, I think you have to take that, But what I will say is I feel very confident that I back it up with research, and that's
Excellent.
powerful.
Yes.
I am simply the messenger, if you will. They're not my studies, but there's thousands of studies that speak for it. In the sense that that's important for credibility.
oh,
so
absolutely.
I have no
All right.
problem
incredible.
with that. Yeah,
Very cool.
the back 10 pages, there's a few hundred
Right.
references.
This has been so enlightening.
Sure.
Thank you. I think so too.
No doubt, so enlightening. And
Yeah.
again, guys, Image Scrimmage out in stores now. Also, the Body Language Politics out in stores now. And then the newest one targeting women's body language. I'm telling you, if you are a man, read that book. Study it. My God,
Do
you never
yourself
stop
a
learning.
favor.
Maybe you can realize why your wife hates you. Figure
Or why
it out.
she really loves you.
Figure it out. But no, I'm serious. That's a great study piece,
Actually,
figuring out the
that
opposite
would be great
sex.
for dating too. Oh,
Absolutely.
Gosh, I'm so mad
Because
we're out of
dating's
time
like a
because-
full-time job. So do it. Learn.
Yes.
You
Body
wonder-
language for dating.
Let's
wonder
get
why-
together and talk women when the book comes out
Yes.
and your dating life.
Absolutely.
Oh, done.
Check.
All right.
I
Well,
love that.
thank
Let's do
you,
it.
Dr. Donna Van Natten.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate the body language doctor here.
My pleasure. My
Yes.
pleasure. You guys are a gem. Kill it.
Just keep going.
Thank you. Thank you. I know you could. We do this every time we have a guest. We can just keep going. We can't keep going. But if you want more, of course, you can find us right here on your favorite podcast platform, YouTube and everywhere else. Look for Logically Emotional. We'll have more guests, more insightful conversation. We can't wait to have you be a part. That is Rebecca. I'm Sting.
That's Sting.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget, you can find the latest shows online and on demand wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And you can find Logically Emotional on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You've been listening to Logically Emotional. Copyright 2020, Terminal 57 Inc. All rights reserved.